You are listening to Radio Kyoto, coming to you from our studios residing on the scorching hot side in the multiverse this evening. And this week, we're continuing our look into Ravnica Allegiance, diving into the new world, taking a look at it from the limited lens. We'll be breaking down the guilds in a color in each video. The earlier ones you can see further in the earlier in the feed and playlist. Today we are looking at Rakdos and the red cards. First, we're going to be taking a look at the Rakdos uncommons, then their commons, then we'll on to the red uncommons, and finally the red commons. But before we do that, we got to take a look at our rating scale. Fives are the best rating we can give. It's for the bombs, usually reserved for the rares. We're not really going to see those in our uncommons and uncommons for the most part. For the influencers, you see these in your pool or draft. It swings you in that direction. These are powerful. You want about a half dozen of these if you can. Playables are the meat and potatoes of your deck. These are just the number one cards that you have in your deck. These are what you're filling out, trying to get on the other end of the wheel. Fringe cards are typically your 22nd, 23rd, 24th sets cards in your deck that you're trying to fill. You're trying to replace those if you're in your third pack when drafting. Lastly, we have the unplayables. Just put them to the side. You don't want them. And with that, let's take a look at the Rakdos uncommons. And first up, we got the split card. So Carnival Carnage. Carnival is hybrid mana, so either a black or a red, so one of the two, and it deals 1 damage to target creature or planeswalker, and deals 1 damage to that permanent's controller. So a spectacle enabler here could, what you're looking to do is kind of kill off a creature here and get in spectacle for 1 mana. Good there on the aggro side of it when you're looking to spectacle in early, maybe remove a blocker, get in with an attack as well. Carnage side of the house, 2 generic mana, 1 black, 1 red, so 4 total mana, deals 3 damage to the opponent, so bolt the opponent, and then they discard 2 cards, so that is a mind rot, and that is the mana for those 2 types of things. That is great value. That's more, I would say, on the controlling side of the house. So that's great value. This card gives you the versatility, whether you're going to be aggro or control. You can pick this up early and decide later. Great splashable card on the second half of it, whether you're Jund or looking Mardu. That discard 2 cards is just damaging. That's a guaranteed 2 for 1. So with that, this is getting a rating of 4. Next up, we're taking a look at the Guild Mage in the set. Cult Guild Mage, so 1 black, 1 red, 2 total mana for a 2/2, like they all are. Activated abilities on this guy. First one's more controlling, so it's tap 3 and a black, 4 total mana. Target player discards a card. You activate this at any time. You could activate a sorcery, so that's more the controlling half. The other half of this card, tap a red, tap this. Deal 1 damage to target opponent or planeswalker, a spectacle enabler. So again, another card you could pick up, figure out what you're doing later. I think this discard, opponent knows it's coming when it's out there. It's not as damaging as the last one we're looking at. However, the constant enabler here for spectacle is good value. We'll see better value, but this is pretty good. And with that, we're giving this guy a 4. One of the better guild mages out there. I think we still got the Senate Guild Mage in front of it from Azorius. Next up, we have the Fireblade Artist. So 1 red, 1 black, 2 total mana for a 2/2, just like the last creature. But it has haste, so you're probably getting him with an attack for this. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may sacrifice a creature. When you do, the Fireblade Artist deals 2 damage to target opponent or planeswalker. So another free sack outlet. It's got reach with the 2 damage. So keep this in mind if you have your Vendicious Vampire or whatever that was. That's kind of acting as your sacrifice enabler. So this is a solid card, but doesn't get you too much late. You got to have creatures. If you're behind, if you're at parity, it's not helping you out there. You kind of got to have the advantage. So that's why it's much earlier when you're on the beatdown early. And with that, this card gets a 3. We got Acrobat. Love the name. This is a 1 generic mana, 1 red, 1 black, 3 total mana for a 2/3. You can spectacle it earlier into play, or with less mana, with 1 black, 1 red. Great value there. Activated abilities. You tap black, it gets Death Touch. You touch red, turns into a 4/1. I don't think you'd activate that multiple times unless you got some type of enchantment, which isn't necessarily in this set. So great value, great, even better value if you can spectacle it off. You can get it, turn 2. You can get this out there if you got one of our turn 1 enablers that we'll see earlier. So this is very good early, especially in your opening hand if you got one of those enablers. Decent late with that death touching ability, kind of hold off a creature, kind of prevent a little bit more of the beatdown. You probably got mana to open for that black if it's later. So decent controlling card 2. With this one, we're giving it a 3.5. Next up, the Rakdos Firewheeler. So this is the 2 black mana, 2 red mana part of the cycle. For a 4/3, all right, good power. Noting power here, it's 4 for those 4+ power enabler cards out there. When the Rakdos Firewheeler enters the battlefield, it deals 2 damage to target opponent and 2 damage to up to 1 target creature or planeswalker. So spreading out some damage. This is pretty much a 2-for-1. One of those you get to choose. You're probably killing one of their creatures with 2 damage. And then you're going to go for attack. You're going to block with this guy. And it's going to take out another one. So looking at this as a 2-for-1. This is one of the better CCDDs. I'd probably call it the second best, we'll say. Yeah, maybe it's even the third best. I don't know. It's up there with the Simic ones. We're going to see those guys a little bit later. But it is the best uncommon here. And with that, it's getting a rating of 4. So the best Rakdos uncommon, calling it right here. Macabre Mockery. So this is instant, different here. So 2 generic mana, 1 red, 1 black. Put target creature card from opponent's graveyard into the battlefield under your control. It has +2/+0 and has haste until end of turn. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. So instant. You can cast this on your opponent's turn if they're coming in for an attack, and you could take out one of their attackers with it. So kind of 1-for-1ing there. But you're probably more than likely you're playing this on your turn. You're getting in with an attack with one of their dead creatures. It's getting +2/+0 and coming on in. It's probably a better finisher out of nowhere because of that. It's got some setup costs because the opponent's got to have a creature that you want to play out there. So with that, this card gets a 2.5. Probably the worst of the uncommons when it comes to Rakdos here. All right, moving on to the commons. So the Footlight Fiend is modal, hybrid mana. So it's 1 black or 1 red, so 1 total mana for a 1/1. Whenever the Fiend dies, it deals 1 damage to any card target. So this is one of those turn 1 plays to enable Spectacle. If you're on the play, you get this in, you're probably attacking on turn 2. You're getting in Spectacle. You can play one of our 2-drop Spectacle awesomeness cards that we were mentioning there earlier. If you're playing this on turn 1, they got a blocker, or turn 2, and they got a blocker, you still attack in, deals 1 damage to any target, could be the opponent, you're still getting that Spectacle cost enabled. So decent. You're not going to want this in Gruul. You're not going to want this in Orzhov. It really is only Rakdos. Could be as Rakdos as it gets. This card gets a 3. It's playable, but just in Rakdos, it's doing what they want to do. But I'd give it a higher grade, but it's really only available in Rakdos. Rakdos Roustabout is 1 generic mana, 1 black, 1 red for a 3/2. Whenever this becomes blocked, it deals 1 damage to target creature planeswalker. So this is pretty much you're going to play it, you're going to enable Spectacle, and it's going to trade off with whatever creature that they have, applying some pressure. So solid, but you don't necessarily get to pick the creature that it's trading off with. It comes down a little bit later. This we're going to give a 3.0 as well, but I mean, I'd probably rather have the earlier enabler there. Rafter Demon, so 2 generic mana, 1 black, 1 red, for 4/2. When it enters the battlefield, if its spectacle cost was paid, each opponent discards a card. That spectacle cost is 3 generic mana, 1 black, 1 red. So an additional just generic mana, you force the opponent to draw a card, or sorry, discard a card. This is, I don't think you're getting the value that you necessarily want out of this, especially with that spectacle cost. By the time you're casting this, you're triggering Spectacle. They either don't have a card to discard, have junk that they want to discard. As a 4/2, you're losing out to a bear or a 2/3. That's pretty common out there. And you're paying 4 mana to do it. I think you're kind of losing the battle with this one, and I think this one's a trick. It's a 1.5, so I'll do anything I can not to be playing this card. Get to the point. Much better card. This is the one that you want within the commons within Rakdos. Splashable as well. Note that just the removal we have here. 3 generic mana, 1 black, 1 red. Destroy target creature, scry 1. You will play this in Jund. You will play this in Mardu. If you're in those guilds and just kind of splashing in the red or the black as needed, it's high enough up there. Pick this guy up. This is what you want. You could first pick it as a common. It's the best common in Rakdos. All right, on to the red uncommons. Tin Street Dodger. This is 1 red mana for a 1/1 with haste, so you can attack turn 1 with it. You can play 1 red mana, and it can't be blocked this turn except by creatures with Defender. So another one of those turn 2 enablers. But this guy can keep getting in. This guy's got some shiftiness outside of the earlier guy that we were mentioning. He can keep going. I wouldn't expect to see a lot of Defender out there. Just kind of tough. Like, no one wants to play that. People want to be on aggro. Maybe there's some fool out there who wants to be on the Defender deck, but this is a solid card. The thing is, I like it only in Rakdos. I don't think that this is really doing much in Gruul. You're spending your mana other ways. So slimmer. You'll see this with a lot of the red cards. They're either Rakdos or Gruul. This is one of the Rakdos ones, so keeping it slim and such. It doesn't have the versatility, and we got to give it just a standard playable 3 in Rakdos. All right, Swelt Mord Ignace. Yeah, we'll go Ignace. The 1 generic mana, 1 red mana for a 2/1. Not great stats there, a little bit less than a bear, but it is activated ability is 2 generic mana, 1 red, and you sacrifice it. You gain control of target creature with power 3 or less. Untap that creature. It has instant to end a turn. You can only do this at the time they have a sorcery. So decent hijack on a stick. I'd say pick up a flyer with this, knowing that not a lot of flyers out there with power greater than 3. You're playing mental games with the opponent. They know that you have this at all times, and it's like, what creature am I going to play? I'd play this in Gruul or in Rakdos. And you know what? Sack outlet as well. You sacrifice this creature, you get their creature, you got a sack outlet for their creature. You lose 2 creatures, all of a sudden, if you got the payoff there with some sacrifice stuff, this guy's doing his work. So with that, we're gonna give him power 3.5 rating here. He's got some usability and spans both guilds. Cavalcade of Calamity. So this is an enchantment for 1 mana, generic mana, 1 red mana, 2 total mana. When a creature you control with power 1 or less, Cavalcade of Calamity deals 1 damage to target creature or player. So you're going to be attacking with something with 1 power. We saw a lot of the enablers already with 1 power that are already got some evasion to get in. So this does enable Spectacle, but you're probably already enabling Spectacle by attacking with one of those creatures or pinging with these low-cost creatures. I think this guy's a trap. It's probably decent if you play him on turn too, but other than that, just bad. And we're giving him a 2. Clamor Shaman. So for 2 generic mana and 1 red mana, 3 total mana, you get a 1/1 with Riot. First instance of Riot here. Whenever this creature attacks, target creature and opponent controls cannot block. So this means it's either a 2/2 when it comes into play and it's got the ability, or it's a 1/1 with haste. You catch them off guard and you're attacking. You're probably doing it with haste. Catch them off guard, get in that extra damage on attacks that they just necessarily weren't expecting, turn blockings into a detriment on their side. Or it's a 2/2 and it stays at home and you can kind of keep pounding in. So it's like if you have the advantage and you got the cards in your hand, you're probably playing this as the 2/2 and you kind of keep going. But if you're on the beatdown and you want to stay on the beatdown, you got the good board presence and you can do the math, count their life total down to 0. You're probably playing this with the haste. I love the modality of this card. So with that, we're giving it a 3. I think you could play this in either Rakdos or Gruul, and it's doing work. Light Up the Stage. This is my card. I love this card. I think this is a sneaky card and the best red uncommon. So what's it do? For 2 generic mana, 1 red mana, exile the top 2 cards of your library. Until the end of your next turn, you may play this card. It's a sorcery. So let's say there's 2 cards of lands. Okay, you didn't play a land for this turn. You could play one. Next turn, you already got your land. It allows you to get 2 cards deeper. Also, it has spectacle cost of just red. So you got 1 damage in. You treat this as a draw too. There's no downside to this. You don't have to play the cards you exile. You got 2 turns to do it. I think you're playing this after combat when you get one of your sneaky guys in. You play it early. You could play it late. Again, best red uncommon. Don't sleep on this card. Pick up every one that you can. It is solid for. You're playing this in Rakdos or Gruul with some of those tramplers that get in. Just getting 2 cards deeper in a color pairing that doesn't allow you to. Gates Ablaze. This is for the Gates deck or any of those more controlling decks where you're playing Gates. What's it do? 2 generic mana and a red mana. Sorcery speed. Deal X damage to each creature where X is the number of gates you control. So 2 gates, deal 2 damage to every creature. 3. I think 3 is the magic number here, given the number of toughness out there. If you are Gruul, maybe more controlling Gruul, where you're slapping 1/1s on your riot creatures, building them up above this. This is a bomb in that more controlling type deck. I think there's a Rakdos control shell out there with a lot of discard. Kind of clunkier on that side of the world. Splashable if you're in that Gates deck as well. So I think this is a fun one, and we're giving this a 3.5 because this just hoses any aggro. Dagger Caster. So 3 generic mana, 1 red mana for 2/3. Not great stats, but when it enters the battlefield, deal 1 damage to each opponent and 1 damage to each creature that opponent controls. So this will sweep any of the ones that are out there. If you can get this on the stack and play that Death Touch trick we had in the previous episode in black, this wraths the opponent's board. That's not too shabby. This I think you can play it after combat. The opponent thinks they had opportune blocks. They set up good blockers. They did the best they could, and then all of a sudden you put this in, and it sweeps off the rest of the board that they thought was sticking around. This is quite a solid and versatile card. I like it at a 3 toughness as well. Sneaky blocker on the back half, 3.5 for the dagger caster. Rumbling Ruin. So this is uncommon. That is 5 generic mana, 1 red mana for a 6/6. So decent stats. 6 mana for a 6/6. Solid. Not the greatest, but solid. When it enters the battlefield, count the number of +1/+1 counters on creatures you control. Total number of the counters. So if you've got something that's been adapted, creatures your opponent controls with power less than or equal to that number cannot block this turn. So this could be a quick ender if you got a number of +1/+1 counters out there. This guy can't attack on that turn. So that kind of stinks. You don't got your 6/6 attacking in. So just really good with a board stall. If you're playing that more controlling rule, you've been on the back foot. You've stabilized. You got your riots out there with 1/1 +1/+1 counters. It's solid for that. Pretty edgy case. I don't think you're playing this all on Rakdos. So really just a controlling Gruul, and you got to have the board set up for it. So it's a 2.5. Flames of the Raise Boar. So instant speed. 5 generic mana, 1 red mana. This will deal 4 damage to target creature an opponent controls. And then if you control a creature of power 4 or greater, deal 2 damage to each other creature that player controls. So 6 mana at instant speed, you're dealing 4 damage to target creature. That's pretty much going to take out 1 creature. And then you can wrath the rest of the board if you got a creature with power 4 or greater. Much easier to do in Gruul. Great Gruul card. You can do it in Rakdos, but you need probably the Fire Wheeler we were just talking about earlier. Not the greatest, power 4 or greater cards there that you're going to be stacking in your deck. But in a controlling Rakdos deck, I can see it happening. It'd really just be the ender if you were a controller of that person's day. But there's a lot of 3 power creatures out there, so instant speed, this is important. If they set out for a block, you're lining up your blocks. You can kill one of the creatures with power 4, deal 2 extra damage to the rest of those creatures. Maybe that gets down some of the blockers that you didn't necessarily have to care about. You could play this during your combat. If they're trying to double block one of your guys, just take one of them out, sweep the rest of the field, even before their blockers set. Really turn things into a very fortunate situation. This is a 3.5 and quite solid. I think you're playing one of these if you see them and you're leaning towards Gruul or a Rakdos control. All right, that's it on the uncommon. So we're hitting the red commons here. Spewer, 1 red mana for a 0/2 defender. It deals 1 damage to each player. So this is a Spectacle Enabler. You can also play it early, turn 1. Enables Spectacle on turn 2 just by popping this guy. You can put him in your control deck. And at the end of the opponent's turn, you turn this guy sideways. Maybe as a 0/2, he's holding something off. But you turn him sideways, deal 1 damage. I take a few of these guys in my controlling Rakdos deck. Probably less so in Gruul, but you could. But I think this guy works in all forms of Rakdos, and we're giving him a 3.5. Next up, Storm Strike. 1 red mana, target creature gains first strike and +1/+0 until end of turn. It's instant speed. Scry 1. This card is awesome. I love what this card is doing. I think this is easily the 3rd best common in the set. It is a form of removal. First strike, extremely rare in this set, as we've been talked about so far. The Scry 1 is just an awesome add-on with it. This is taking any Rakdos or Gruul attack in which your opponent thinks they have the upper hand and turning it around. So it's pretty much a kill card because these are creature-based decks. And I think this is, it's a 3.5. I'd border on the online a 4 with this, but I mean, it is just a trick. It relies on a creature. I'd take, multiples of these, probably up to 2, maybe 3, in my deck. Defacts, hate this card. 1 red mana, choose 1, destroy an artifact. There's no artifacts you want to destroy. Destroy a defender. There's probably no defenders you want to destroy. Sideboard card at best, rating of 1. Furo Maka, 1 generic mana, 1 red mana, 2/2. This is your classic bear. It's a cat, but it's a bear. Not great. You could do much better. Bears with upside are of the plenty around here. 2.0. Just don't play this card. Decent 2-drop. Maybe a not even that much better, but for 1 generic mana, 1 red mana, you get a 2/1. But it's got the pump ability, so if you're in Gruul, I kind of understand this one a little bit better. You can pump it up +2/+2 by tapping a green and 3 generic mana, making a 4/3. Makes it a little bit scarier in the attacks and combat, but kind of flimsy with the 1 and toughness. So this as well, we are just giving a 2. Much better 2 play here, leaving the mana open, and at instant speed, you're playing 1 red mana, 1 generic mana. Deal 2 damage to target creature. If that creature would die instead, exile it instead. This just removes Afterlife. It's not a creature that's coming back into play ever this game, and the Afterlife trigger never happens. This is the second best common in red here. You'll take a 2 damage removal, just get rid of something. Never have to worry about it, and we're giving it a 4.0. You take these in multiples. Burning Tree Vandal, 3 drops. So this is a 2 generic mana, 1 red. You get a 2/1 with that, with Riot. Whenever this attacks, you may discard. If you do, draw a card. So you can loot it. You don't have to discard a card and draw a card. But you can. You probably want to take advantage of it, especially if you've got some clunky lands or cards you don't necessarily want in your hand. This is solid. I think you're probably better getting this off with haste, because you could probably use it twice in that case. You're catching the opponent, we'll say with their with their creature's tap, they're not expecting this guy to come through. Maybe they thought they were racing you. You're going to attack on the second time through, and when it dies, so you get probably 2 instances of this if you're using the Riot phase. I don't really like it as a 3/2. I'm probably using this more as haste, so it's an aggressive card. Aggro. 3.0 with that, solid in your aggro shell. Goblin Gather, 2 generic mana, 1 red mana. Create the number of +1/+1 red goblin token creatures to 2+ the number of this card already in your graveyard. You're probably not getting a ton of these. Maybe they're being passed around like crazy. It's sorcery speed. It's not a great rate for just 2/1/1 red. I mean, if you pick them up, and I don't know, they're good sack outlets, I guess, part of the sack. But I don't think you're looking to play this. We're giving you a 1. Act of Treason, 2 generic mana, 1 red, sorcery speed, gain control of target creature until end of turn. Untap that creature. It has haste until end of turn. So another great hijack, attack, and sack outlet. This will help your Gruul deck turn the table. There's a blocker maybe they thought they had out there. Helps turn a race around. Helps with sacrifice. I think there's a lot of decks this wants to go in. Any of the red ones, I think, would take it. Controlling or a speed opponent, gotta honor it if they're low on life total too. 3.0. Burn Bright, another trick here. 2 generic mana, 1 red mana. Creatures you control get +2/+0 until end of turn. So a little trumpet blast here, instant speed. It's solid, decent trick, but it's expensive. 3 mana. Yeah, you got to be using that as a finisher. You can use it in Rakdos. It's not necessarily a Gruul card, despite the text and the imagery here. Solid, but I think just a 2. You're going to want maybe 1 at most, and it's got to be around at the right time. Otherwise, it's just a card sitting in your hand. Skewer the Critics. 2 generic mana, 1 red mana. You can also spectacle out this sorcery for 1 red mana. So it deals 3 damage to any target. Solid, efficient, lightning bolt style removal. This is the best common in red. Pick up as many of these as you can. It's not going to be hard to spectacle. We talked about the early enablers. The late ones, you got Gruul creatures with trample. You're getting in some flyers with Afterlife from your black Rakdos cards. Yeah, you want to be playing this card. I think any red deck is going to be looking for this. Gore Clan Wrecker. You got 3 generic mana and 1 red mana for a 2/2 with Riot. It also has Menace. So it's either entering as a 2/2 Menace, boom, right off the bat. It's, the Menace is pretty good. I'd say it enables Spectacle, but not until like the next turn. You're already paying 4 mana for it, so it's going to be pretty hard to, if you got 5 mana and you got one of your 1 Spectacles out there, you can use it. Not unfeasible, but this is probably better as a 3/3 Menace. So I like the versatility, probably more so in the aggro side of the world. And it works good in either guild. It's probably just going to take out 1 creature whenever it attacks, because they got to block it with Menace. So solid card, solid creature. I think you're playing them. We're giving that a solid 3. Spike Wheel Acrobat. So another 4-drop here. Not one as I am as high on. It's 3 generic mana, 1 red mana for a 5/2. You can also spectacle this out earlier for a 2 generic mana and 1 red. So the 2 toughness is what gets me. I mean, this is probably a better control blocker than it is anything else. So think about it that way, and it's probably better set. So with that, it's getting a 2.5. Rubble Reading. This is for 4 mana, 3 generic mana, 1 of those red, destroy target land, scry 2. Don't be the guy playing, land destruction. Come on. I mean, not great. I mean, I'll give it, the scry 2 is kind of cool, but lands aplenty. If you're either out in front ahead on somebody and you're just putting them into the ground, or they're flooding out and this card means nothing to you. So this isn't a card I want to see you guys playing. Lastly, Rubble Belt Recluse. 5 mana, so it's 4 generic mana, 1 red. It attacks each turn if each combat if able to, and it's a 6/5. So for 5 mana, 6/5, love the body on this guy, and it's a splashable beatdown too. If you're in Jund and if you're in Rakdos control, this guy comes in late. He is a house to deal with, especially if you're in one of those classic control decks and you've been keeping the opponent's creature count down. You got them on the they're on the edge of not being able to play, but their life total's still high. This guy's coming in and providing the beatdown. I think this guy is solid in any of those control decks, splashable or otherwise. You're using all this removal we talked about earlier, and he's coming in and he's finishing up the job. Not just Gruul. Throw him in Rakdos. Throw him in Mardu. Throw him in Jund. And with that, Planeswalkers, that completes not just Rakdos, but Red as well. So another day down, another guild done and dusted. Tomorrow we'll be taking a look at the Gruul guild. We'll see a lot more Riot in there, and we'll also be taking a look at all the green cards as well. So with that, I'll see you tomorrow. But until then, Sewahu Suru Planeswalker.